Hi everyone, I'm Andrew. I made Rollama, and in this video I'm going to explain what it's all about. So Rollama is a website of interactive tools and games to learn English spelling, punctuation and grammar, or SPAG. And we use individual accounts which enable students to practice independently in school or at home, and it enables easy tracking for teachers to see the results and performance of the children. So what problem was Rollama built to solve? Well, English SPAG is particularly confusing, especially for students who are learning English as a second language. Some examples at the top there including auxiliary verbs and subject-verb agreement, was and were, do and does, am, is, are, homophones like there, time prepositions, something which are not obvious to second language speakers, but there's also plenty of tricky parts of grammar which first language speakers could practice as well. But it can be quite dry to teach and practice. Some parts of grammar are interesting, perhaps more interesting for adults than students, but even the most interesting parts of grammar can be really repetitive to practice, and it can be hard to sustain over time. And of course, curriculum time for reteaching or addressing gaps is limited, and for children who arrive with gaps in a certain year group, to go back and reteach different points can be a difficulty. And especially for children learning English as a second language, their time is spread thin between catching up and joining into the regular curriculum. So how does Rollama begin to address these issues? Firstly, we have the structure of our accounts, which is that a school admin account has the ability to create other teacher accounts, manage the access and so on. Teacher accounts then create the student accounts, and then the students are free to play games to practice, and they have their own login with a very simple short username and password, so they can log in at home and play on any web browser. So that's tablet, laptop, desktop. Soon, hopefully in the future, we'll be able to offer mobile devices, and hopefully soon a standalone app as well to allow offline play. So far it runs in any web browser: Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Edge, but students will need internet access. So when you first log in as a teacher, you can set up your student accounts, and this is the homepage of the teacher dashboard, where you can see the weekly performance of your children to make it easy to celebrate their achievements. So there's lots of different things within the teacher dashboard which we explain in other tutorial videos, but basically this is your homepage for managing your class, setting up competitions and customizing different elements, plus also the whole class tools, which I'll explain later in the video. If you click the button in the top right hand corner which says switch to student mode, you'll be able to see how the site looks for students, and you have your own student account as a teacher. Here is the student dashboard, which you can see through that button. So the student homepage is the quests lists, and these lists are categories of different parts of SPAG with 8 or 9 games for each, and each game has its own medal which students can earn, and then if they achieve a medal in all of those games, they earn the trophy at the top of the quest. The idea of this is to try and focus the children. Since we have over 100 different games, we want to organize it and try and focus in on different things which different teachers will want to emphasize with their class. Later on, we'll have an allocation system where you can direct your children to achieve certain medals or certain trophies. But so far everything is accessible to everyone, and children can go through it. They can play all of the different games on here. Later on, if we have feedback that people want to restrict this or just guide children to certain things, we can implement that. You can also see in the left-hand side we have games listed especially for EAL learners. We have some harder games in the pro sector and also some multiplayer games. We also list the games by game type. We have 12 different solo game types, so we list them in the sidebar there. You can also see in the top left corner, this is where we have the avatar section, which we use to motivate children and help them get invested in returning to practice regularly. Just briefly to show you our avatar system. So the students can explore this for themselves, but just quickly. So the avatar will evolve over time as they spend more time practicing, play more games. So it grows up through these different stages. They can customize it by buying items in the shop. And to get coins to buy the items, they need to play on the different games. So for example, we've got these 15 different game types. And each one has got between 10 and 15 different objectives, and on each game page there's 3 difficulty levels, which I'll explain in a moment. Here's one of the game types. For example, this is called Pick a Pair. So different cards are arrayed and the children have to pair up. In this case it's irregular past tense verbs. There's many different varieties of this game, but they get 60 seconds to try and pair up as many as they can, and then each time a new set of 12 cards will come out. This game type is called Space Race. Children have to answer multiple choice questions. When they do, the llama's neck grows longer. In this example, it's homophones. We have about 15 different varieties for this game. And they're all multiple choice questions, but with the visual element to keep children engaged. And the longer the neck grows, the higher their score, and they can get all the way into outer space. So we find this one quite motivating. We've used this game type more for things like subject-verb agreement, things which are very repetitive. We've got hundreds of different question prompts, sentences with gaps, and this game type we find is really motivating for children. So we've applied it to games which require a lot of repetition. This is the level system that we've used on all of the game pages, of which we have over 125. So there's 3 levels of difficulty, and in broad terms we've tried to match it to the expectation and vocabulary of key stages 1, 2 and 3. This is not a precise science, and of course there will be children who fall outside this range, but as a general rule of thumb, and trying to cover levels of English proficiency from first language speakers to students who are learning English as an additional language, we've tried to include everybody. And in general, level 1 should be accessible for most children. Of course, there will be some children who fall outside this range and want extra challenge. But for simplicity's sake, we felt 3 levels was enough variety, and then children can adjust on each game page. Of course, some games they'll find harder than others. And so we felt that this would include as many people as we could. Each of our game pages also has its own leaderboard. We call it the High Rollers leaderboard, and children can filter this by time frame, by week, month or year, or all time, and they can also look at children from their own class, the school and the world in each of the 3 difficulty levels. We know that privacy is important, so all children can decide if they want to be anonymous on this leaderboard, or they can choose to show their llama name or their real name. That can be changed in the settings. The idea of the High Rollers leaderboard is a little bit of friendly competition, which we know motivates a lot of children. So far I've talked about the independent games, and I want to summarize before I move on to talk about the whole class tools. So we've designed Rollama to be child-centered and fun, and for the most part children can access the games independently after a small amount of input from the teacher, and they can explore these things themselves. We've tried to make it as engaging as we can. For those who know, it's similar to Times Table Rockstars, but for English SPAG, in the sense that it's short games which can motivate children to practice regularly. Children can play on their own devices, tablet, laptop, desktop. There are some multiplayer games which are designed for iPad. It's easy for children to play and teachers to set as a motivating SPAG homework. And we also include different school-wide certificates, competitions and events, which I haven't described yet, but you can explore in the sidebar of your teacher dashboard. In the last part of this presentation, I'm going to talk about the whole class features. So just to introduce those, we've got a quick daily practice tool, which is very tightly focused on certain SPAG objectives. You can personalize it to your class and also link it back to the student avatars and individual accounts. It's similar to quiz websites like Kahoot, Quizzes, Quizlet, but has the benefit of not needing individual accounts. Students don't need to log in to play these whole class practice tools. You can load up the game and play in as little as 1 minute. So instead of waiting for everyone to log in, which can take a lot of time, we've got these short tools which I'll explain on the next few pages. And students don't need a device. You can play this on your whiteboard and just project to the whole class. So this is the menu page for roll call. On this page you can choose the settings, which class you want to play with, and then you can choose if you want to play each child individually, scoring coins for themselves, or you can choose to make 2 teams. So on the first select the class, and then normal is every student by themselves, and then for teams you can drag children across, you can shuffle, and then accept the teams. When you're playing in team mode, the children in team 1 will be shown on the left hand side of the screen and the children in team 2 on the right hand side. You can choose how long you want to play for, and you can choose how many coins you want to award for a correct answer. You can turn the sound effects on or off, and then by starting the game you'll go to the menu page where you can choose what type of grammar point you want to practice. So we have, they're arranged in the same way as the quests, so they correspond to the way that the children's quest page is organized, and each section has a number of games. You can choose one to go into the roll call game page, which I'll show now. In roll call, you choose a grammar point. You roll to bring up a new question. With in this example, we've got was and were. We've got a gap in the sentence. You click roll to launch a new question. You give thinking time for the whole class, and then you can click to reveal names, and whichever child calls out the answer first, you can award them points by clicking on their name. Those coins go towards their own user account. So within this, we've got over 50 different grammar points which you can practice, and you can click to check the answer afterwards, and this can be played as individual or a team game. Each page within roll call also has its own teacher tip and worksheet. So by clicking on the worksheet button, it brings up a printable worksheet of 20 random questions with answers underneath, which you can print out and give as a starter activity or assessment. And this is directly related to the prompts which children will be practicing on the independent games. So the skills link directly to those. So this page, for example, there's a couple of hundred different questions, and you can click on the teacher tip for a simple poster of a reminder how to address that grammar point. Roll call can be played as individual or a team game. You can click on the leaderboard next to the level button here to show the scores, and when it's individual, each child has their own coins. You can look at it within a certain time frame or the overall coins which the students have earned. You can put up a QR code which takes students directly to a game for this point, or you can click on the information button in the top right hand corner, and this will show you the list of all the questions that we have within this grammar point. The other whole class tool that we have is called Supersets. This is something that we've designed as a do now or a starter. When children are coming into the room, you can have it up on the board. And as you can see on the slide, we have 4 different questions for 4 different grammar points here. You click roll to generate new questions for each of them, and you can simply leave this on the screen as children are coming in as bell work, or however you want to do it. This one doesn't involve any students' names, but you can click to check the answer, and that will bring up the answer for that set. You click roll to reset and roll 4 new questions for those 4 grammar points. There's a teacher tip which covers the 4 things, and that is Supersets. So the whole class tools are designed as starters and refreshers. I won't claim that they are a teaching sequence in themselves. These are more like a recap or a revision of things which have been learned previously, but we design them as a quick way to recap things which you have taught previously. So that's about all for today on the independent games and the whole class practice tools. Hopefully that's given you a better idea of what Rollama is all about. We welcome any feedback or questions, and thanks for watching. Have a good day. Bye.